going on, guys? Alex here with 814 EDC, and today I'm ready to do my full review on the Ketuo Knives Griffin. So this is a knife that was loaned in via the Lefty passaround group, and I believe that's how you pronounce her name, Ketuo. It's Ketuo, Ketuo. I'm not really sure. It is I believe, Chinese-based knife company. I will leave a link to their website down below if you guys are interested in checking them out. Looks like they have some pens. They have Ketuo knife, and they also have a link to Reich knife, which is another Chinese manufacturing. So this one might be kind of a conglomerate like group with both of them, or like a brother-sister group. I'm not totally sure. I don't know too much about them. I just thought this knife looked kind of cool, and I saw it was a button lock, and Kevin had it in, and of course he tossed it in the passaround group, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'd check it out. And I'm going to say right off the bat, not a huge fan of this knife. It's not, it didn't really live up to my expectations, if I'm being honest. And I just think that because of how bad I believe the action is, how crappy of a D10 is on this knife. And I know, it's hard to really knock out button locks sometimes, but I feel like in today's day of age, with so many budget button locks becoming a thing and really, really performing well, you got to nail the more expensive premium sort of button locks, and I think they kind of failed with this one. From an aesthetic standpoint, it's super futuristic looking. It's super it is cool to look at. I think they did a good job on the aesthetics of it. Not my jam per se, but I do appreciate it and do think it's cool. Just not anything I would add to my collection. So yeah, we're going to dive right into materials. I do have a list of, from the website for stats and specs and all that, but you guys can see this is a huge, not huge, but a big titanium button lock knife. Right away, you can see the different sort of milling on the pivot and on the backspacer hole. Then you have a large lanyard hole, kind of I believe they call it a integrated lanyard loop floating spacer. So it's a backspacer that goes about 60% of the way up the back of the knife. Right there has some jimping, and it's called, again, a integrated lanyard loop floating spacer. So that's intriguing. You do have a milled titanium pot clip that has the name of the brand right there. You can switch it over lefty or righty. You have a filler tab right there, which is nice. It is a titanium model, but you do have inlays here with carbon fiber. It's kind of an interesting way to do carbon fiber. I would have maybe put another one up here. It just seems kind of, weird they only put one inlay on it. But you can see also from this knife that it has multiple deployment methods. You have a large hole down here, a front flipper up here, and a normal sort of back flipper right there. Flies out of there. Interesting blade shape. There's also the Griffin right there is the name of the model. And then right there is the Ketuo sort of brand logo. Has a fuller in here, has a ramp with jimping right here, poon area right here. Nice sort of squared out choil, which is intriguing. You don't see that too often. As for internal milling, there's quite a bit on this knife. There looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pockets on both sides. You guys might be able to catch a little bit of that right there. So it is nicely milled out, which is great. Again, it's a budget button lock. So some stats on it. M390 blade steel, HRC'd at 59 to 61. I feel like that could have been a little bit higher. But the blade style is a harpoon spear point. Definitely on brand with that. Definitely interesting. Blade length is 3.55 inches. So not a small knife by any means. Cutting edge length is 3.12 from here to here. It is obviously titanium with a forged carbon fiber inlay. Scale length or handle length 4.97 inches. Obviously the titanium backspacer thickness 0.53 inches. It's definitely not a thin knife by any means. Overall length when it's open 8.52. Milled titanium pod clip. Weighs about 4.78 ounces. And honestly, that doesn't seem, it's a bigger knife, and I get that, titanium, things like that. But it doesn't feel like it weighs like that, and I don't know, that goes to show, I think, that the titanium milling, has been pocketed out of the inside of the knife, really helps and goes a long way with the sort of weight of the knife and, the ergo department, per se. But, yeah, just under 5 ounces. The designer is David Yin. And he gives a whole listing on how the design, sort of came to be and whatnot. So if you guys are interested in that, I'm not going to read it all to you, but it'll be linked down below in the description. So yeah, definitely an interesting knife. It's cool, sort of, again, futuristic, but very tactical oriented, I feel like. But it's also sort of has some clean lines to it, and overall, I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. So next, we're going to talk about action. And like I said, this has multiple deployment methods. So you have a nice big large hole here. You have a flipper tab, or excuse me, a front flipper tab with plenty of real estate. Arguably, if this had a better detent, which I really wish it did, because I really want to experience a snappy detent with this front flipper, because you just get so much real estate right there to land on, to flip it open. If it had a better detent, I think it would be so much better. And then you, of course, have the back flipper right here with jimping. So we're going to go with the middle finger flick first. Flies open. But again, the detent is just so, like, it's not really taking me too much just to pop this out of there. It's just very mushy, and it's just not very good. You guys can see, very easy to fail this knife. I mean, as long as you take the knife out of your pocket and you just bang, it's going to go open. But, it should have a little bit better of a detent, in my opinion. Thumb flick. Not a huge fan of thumb flicking this knife. And another thing that sort of is an issue, in my opinion, that I found out is when you open the knife, you want to kind of get a good grip on it. But when you flick it open, the front flipper tab travels around. How about, you guys can see this, and it hits my finger, and that causes the blade to stop. Middle finger flick, it doesn't really, affect me because I can get a good enough thwack out of there. But thumb flick, there I was able to get it. But at times it hits it. And then the front flipper works okay, not the best. It's just that detent is just so not good. It's probably one of the worst detents I've ever felt on a a knife with a button lock, or just in general. Like, for the size of this knife, for the size of the blade, for the multiple deployment methods, I would rather have a much, and again, I've talked about this before with, when you have 2 to 3 methods of deployment on a knife, it's hard to nail the detent for each one, but I would rather have one nailed in completely, and then maybe it be too stiff for, the other two, rather than be too mushy, because they didn't even nail any of them on here at all. It's just mushy for everything. Like, I can just fail it there. I can fail it there. I mean, you can obviously slow roll it, but you can fail it there, and you can fail it there. It just comes out, and I feel like the push button, which you guys know I'm a huge push button fan when it comes to deploying a flipper tab, as opposed to a light switch where you have to drag your finger. But on this, you have to use a light switch, because if you use the push button, your finger stays in the way. I open the blade, but then the front flipper just hits it, and it doesn't, it doesn't really it just stops the blade, which is a bummer. If you do it fast enough, your thumb will move a little bit, but the light switch is definitely the way you have to deploy this knife via the flipper tab, by dragging your finger down out of the way, and that lets the front flipper tab travel over and lock into place. So just not really a super well thought out design, in my opinion. And again, if you had a better detent, that would just solve so many issues when it comes to the Griffin and how it operates and so on and so forth. But my favorite way of deploying it is, of course, the middle finger flick. It just is the most foolproof way, I think. It doesn't really hit your finger. You can get a good enough amount of pressure to fly it open without failing the knife or anything like that. And I just really wish the front flipper had a better detent, because it's just so thought out, but it feels kind of awkward in your hand. Kind of just flailing around, and I don't know, I'm just not, I really don't like the action that much. It's not that good, in my opinion, and that's just, again, stemming from the detent. If this detent was better, we could be having a much different conversation about this. But at the end of the day, they just did not do very well at the detent. And closing action is also not very good. It's all right. You have the button right there, and it sits very flush. I can't even flick it like normal. I honestly, the more I play with this knife, I haven't carried it for a few, probably a week or so. I carried it a couple times when I first got it in just to experience it and to, so I can give my opinions on it for you guys. And I fidgeted with it a ton then, but I haven't carried it for a little while. And now that I'm like back fidgeting with it again for this review, I'm just really kind of getting annoyed with it. And I don't like this knife really. There's cool things about it and whatnot, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. There is a button when you have the knife deployed. Has some spring tension there, but I just don't like it because you almost have to you have a cutout around the button right there, and you sometimes have to just really push down hard or just dig your thumb deep into that hole, and it's not comfortable. It's not very responsive. And then sometimes like right now, the button is clearly deployed, but I really have to push down so damn hard. And I don't like it. It's just frustrating to use. It's not, the perfect example. This is a $50 knife from Best Techman, the good boy. I could just sit here and do this. Obviously I need to, still getting broken in a little bit, but I could do this all day because the button lock system works well. It's responsive. It's 10 times better than the button lock system on the Griffin. $50 knife, $250 knife. So not a big fan, just all around, the best way to deploy it, again, is the middle finger flick, but then to close it, you just have to just push down so damn hard. And it just I don't know, it really frustrates me that it is like that. So we're going to move on from action. Just not a fan of it. And I feel like this is the first knife in a while that I've been so negative towards, but it just is really, really frustrating to operate. And yeah, so next up is ergos, which is by far the most positive thing I have for this knife, the most positive experience I've had from this knife. It doesn't look like it would be the most comfortable ergonomically, but I can get all 4 fingers on here very, very comfortably. You have a very large natural restriction point right here. It's pretty straight, it curves toward the back here, and it's pretty much a straight line to straight line. Here, straight line, straight line, straight line. Again, it doesn't look like it's going to be that ergonomic, but it really is. All 4 fingers on here very comfortably. I have plenty of real estate back there. Again, that nice natural restriction point. You have jimping right here on the little sort of thumb ramp. If you can do some push cuts. Saber grips are very comfortable. Hammer grips are very comfortable. The paw clip is very, thin and very flush to the scales, so it's not causing a hot spot or anything like that, which is nice. And then choked up, you just basically take your index finger, your middle finger, nice natural restriction point there, wrap around, pointer finger, wrap around the sort of squared off forward finger choil, which I have not seen in a while, or really at all, so that's intriguing. And then it has a nice poon area up there for your thumb, and this really locks your hands around this knife if you have to do push cuts, if you have to cut around something very specific in particular where you have to be careful what it is you're cutting. Very, very nice. This does have a decently thin edge. It's not the thinnest in the world, but it definitely comes down to a nice thin edge. And again, M390, getting that premium steel, but very, very comfortable. You can definitely do a lot of tasks with this. And even choked back, you still have plenty of grip and plenty of control over the knife because you have that thumb ramp with it jimping. And I really can appreciate when knives have such deep cutouts that just let your your hand just get wrapped around the knife so well. And it's comfortable lefty, comfortable choked back, choked up. And of course you can switch it lefty or righty if need to. But the clip isn't much of a hot spot at all. It's really not a hot spot, so there's nothing really to complain about. But I think the shining star of this knife for me is the ergos. It's just very, very comfortable. Gets locked in. If you happen to be needing to do some 7-Eleven gas station knife fights with Kevin over a Slurpee, it feels pretty good. You have a nice landing area up there for your thumb, so if you have to stab or slash or however you knife fight, you probably can do pretty well with this knife. But ergos get a 10 out of 10 from me with the Griffin. Definitely the leading, pro, in my opinion, probably the only pro for me on this knife. But next we're going to talk about carry. Now this knife weighs, I think I said 4.7 ounces. Yes, 4.7 ounces. And it's a big knife. It's not small by any means, but it's a pretty good weight for that. I feel like it would be a little bit higher, but it sits in the pocket. You do have this back spacer right here with the lanyard hole that kind of juts out that has some jimping. So that's the first thing you're going to be contacting if you're going down in your pocket for change, chapstick, medicine, whatever it may be. That's the first thing that you're going to be contacting when you go in it. But the jimping's pretty, pretty subtle. You're going to go down, you have a flipper tab down here as well. So you're going to be contacting it kind of twice if you're, really right by your hand, which most jeans pockets are pretty small. So if you are trying to go down past your knife, your hand is pretty much going to be in contact with it the entire time. So if you just have to be careful when you're down in there and go to pull out, you don't want to pull the knife up out as well. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't carry this knife a ton, once, maybe twice. And it carries okay for the size, 4.7 ounces. I believe handle length is 4.97 inches. So it's about a 5-inch knife. It's definitely big for my taste. I don't really carry huge knives like this too much. But yeah, carries okay, okay weight, kind of just meh. Nothing really to write home about in that specific department. But that leads me to my final category of price point and would I recommend this knife. I can tell you right now, I cannot recommend this knife just due to how much it frustrates me, how much, I think the knife has potential. I think the design is good. The materials that are used are good. I just really wish the detent was better. I think that would have provided a much better experience for me during my time with it. But yeah, $250. I think that's a fine price. Again, if you're getting a very solid action and a good detent, and the fit and finish is there, which everything else about this knife, the fit and finish and the quality of the materials, seems like it's high quality. I have no complaints about the build quality of the knife, except for just the detent system. The knife does have a little bit of a rattle, if you guys can hear that or not, but that's just something I just wanted to kind of talk about. But $250, I don't think I can recommend it. It is sold out on the website, so you cannot currently just go buy one. But if you guys are that interested in, if you like the design, hopefully they're doing some quality checking and they're updating and they're just trying to fix things, because I think this knife can be good. I think it has potential, but right now in its current state, I can't recommend it. If you're taking just the materials and stuff like that, $250, I think that's again a fair price. It's for what you're getting. You're getting plenty of knife here for that price with M390 titanium carbon fiber, multiple deployment methods. The detent just has to be better. So hopefully they see the concerns with that and they go, take it under the knife, fix it, revamp it, and make better models with it. But yeah, just definitely not, I think this might have been the most negative the most negative review I've ever had, possibly, definitely top 3. And I don't know, just something about it just didn't jive with me. And that detent really frustrated me when I'm trying to fidget with it, enjoy it. And it's just like, it's almost like a chore to try to land. And again, to kind of go back to the button, which I didn't mention, the button needs to be a little bit bigger and just have better, be a little bit taller and have a little bit more area to kind of land on. But I don't know. We're gonna quit ranting, because this was definitely not a raving review. This was a ranting review. But this was my full review on the Ketuo Knives Griffin. Has potential, really does. Like the design, like the materials, but just needs to be better. So that's just what I'm going to leave it as. But leave a comment down below. What are your guys' opinions on the knife? And also the website will be linked down below if you guys are interested in checking it out and seeing what else Ketuo Knives has to offer. But I'm going to wrap this up now. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your morning, night, evening, whenever you're watching this. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.